Yeah, I'm just waiting for my guest to arrive. So the interviews are going to be in Spanish and maybe some English. Hey, how you doing, Hebrew Lion? Yeah, I'm just waiting for my guest. Let's see. I'm doing good, just waiting for my guest so we can actually talk about the history of rap in my own parents' part of the Dominican Republic, San Pedro de Macorís. So I'm just waiting for my guest. Yo, so Hebrew, we gotta link up whenever I'm in Jersey, man. I really want to go and support your business since you always supported my movement and everything, and Atman also. Hey, how you doing? How's everything, Keisha? And welcome to the chat. I'm here waiting for a special guest, so we could actually talk in depth about a movement that's so dear to my heart. So I'm just chilling, macking, just doing what I do. So the interview might be in both languages, in English and in Spanish. So I'm just letting the viewers know ahead of time. That's good. Yep. So right now, hopefully by next year, I'll still be on the road for 1K. So I'm just trying to keep my content original and the ideas original also, for that matter. Also, in one case or another, I'm trying to be innovative and an innovator also. So hopefully in the year 2024, there'll be a lot of new things coming. So for my viewers, for all my faithful followers, stay tuned. I'm going to be working in 2024. Well, I don't know, because I didn't really get to see the stream that much. I know that he gave me the link and everything, but I was actually busy. What the heck I was doing yesterday? Oh yeah, I was on my other stream where I was talking about the martial arts. Bienvenido, ¿cómo está usted?
All right. Hey, hopefully you could hear me, but I cannot hear you. But give me one little second.
Yeah.
You
All
can
right.
change.
Yeah, I hear you.
Hopefully I'll be able to hear you now.
All right.
Okay. There you
Yeah.
go. Okay, so I
Yeah.
got. Hold on. Let me make a change here as well now. Gotcha.
All right.
Okay, now I hear you, and you
All
probably
right.
hear me good, right?
Yes.
Excellent.
So the first question is introduce yourself on Mr. Roberts, because I've been following your work on Facebook for quite some time right now.
Wow, that's wonderful to hear. Okay.
Yes.
Uh, for everyone that's on live, uh, my name is Anthony Roberts. I'm a recording engineer producer here in New York City. I work within the Spanish community, uh, and my background is from the Dominican Republic. My parents are from there. Me and my brother, we were the first generation here in the States born. Uh, and now we continue working here in New York on a freelance basis. And
Yeah.
apart from, yeah,
I mean, it's very interesting because I'm first generation in my family also.
ah, we have something
Yeah.
in common. We have something in common also, and that's basically I heard your one of your last interviews, and
Yes.
our hometown, our original hometown, we are from
Yes.
Bara, we're from Barahona, the countryside of the Dominican Republic.
Right.
Okay, and
Hmm.
my grandfather, my clone, immigrated to the town side of the country on the East Coast side, which is the
Yeah.
town of San Pedro de Macorís.
Yes.
And it was because of the work that was uh, offered to people who wanted to work in the sugar cane uh,
Industry.
industry, and also in the shipping industry, because if you recall, uh, we have a shipping port. And
Yes, we do.
yes, and many years back, we used to have a hydroplane airport.
Yes. It was like from my recollection, from what my mom always told me, it was like one of the first air well, not technically the airport, but it was one of the first airports in the country. That's what my mom always told me.
Yes, yes, that's the truth. That was one of the first water airports. You know, the planes landed on the water. That was interesting back
Yes.
then. That was a modern technology uh, situation event that occurred.
Yes.
Yeah.
So so I have a question. Since you've been in the as a recording engineer for the past for over 40 years,
Yes.
when did you get your start? Did you get your start here in the United States, or did you branched out to Dominican Republic, or was kind of interchangeable?
Well, it's interesting because I studied here. I grew up. I was raised here. Me and my brother, we would go back on the summer vacations and spend time with the family. And when my time in high school came about, I always had an interest in music. I wanted to learn how to play an instrument. Uh, I eventually uh, learned through high school. I played the trumpet. It was my teenage year in high school. In junior high school, I was part of a choir, and I actually took piano lessons with a
Wow.
teacher. Yeah, back in my high school time, uh, my mom owned a beauty salon. The first Dominican that at that time who worked with Black Americans, and she learned well from them on how to, work with people's hair. She worked.
Yes.
She learned the correct way. She learned the correct
Right.
way. So
Right.
she had a music teacher, which the music teacher was in my school. She taught in my school. So I was a part of her chorus class, and eventually I also took piano lessons with her. Unfortunately, at a young age, my mom couldn't afford a piano for me. I I
All right.
I, I found the piano in the garbage and I mended it together electrically. Almost got the shock of
Wow.
my life, and that's how I took my lessons.
Right.
Yeah.
So another question I got to ask: as a recording engineer, what many acts, I'm saying, within the Spanish music world that you have met in person?
Wow. Okay. Let me go back a little bit. In 1982, during my high school years, my last year in high school, I was a
Right.
part of it. I was a part of an internship program that came to our high school, and
Okay.
My class was selected. One of the classes selected, and at that time, I was more mature. I had my mind focused on what I wanted to do, and I wanted to learn how to make a record. Okay,
All
because
right.
it music always intrigued me. I used to buy my allowance money that my parents used to give us. I would always go on a Saturday and buy either an album or a 45. Okay. And I would sit there
Yeah.
for hours and just listen and listen and listen. What was I listening to? The art of music, the sound. So
Yes.
In my high school time, I was selected for the internship, and the internship coordinator asked me what I wanted to learn, and I said I would like to know how to make a record. She happened. This is oddly crazy, but she happened to have a Spanish recording studio in mind, and
Wow.
they accepted the internship program at their recording studio facility. The recording studio was called Latin Sound Recording Studios, and that was owned by the late Raul Alarcon Sr., which currently was part of the radio station Frequency. And today, in our times, it's actually called La Mega.
Okay.
Okay. Before it became La Mega, it went through a couple of other name changes during the years, you know, but
Right.
currently it still exists. And La Mega is doing pretty, I would say, pretty well within the Spanish community here in New York City and in other
Yes.
states as well, because they have a chain uh, of radio stations tied together, linked together. So
Mm.
during that internship, uh, I remember going for the interview, and they told me I was introduced to the secretary. I was introduced to the manager. She was a female. And then I was also introduced to the assistant engineers. Horacio Malvicino, he's from Argentina. He became
Hmm.
one of my instructors. And Edwin Ayala from Puerto Rico, he was one of my
Nice.
other instructors. And believe it
Hmm.
or not, they told me, come back in the evening around 7 o'clock so that you can see a recording session, to get to know the field. After
Yes.
after I did the interview, I did not go home. I stayed walking the streets in the city all day until that 7 o'clock came. That's how it.
Yes.
That's how excited I was. Okay, and when I got to the studio and I'm there, I met the late John Fausti, the Jewish recording engineer who was responsible for a lot of salsa big time hits over the years.
All
Okay.
right.
And he was Jewish, mind you, but he
Mm-hmm.
had that ear for salsa music. Okay.
Hmm.
And I remember meeting him, and I'm standing literally behind him as he's recording Cuban singer Lady Landia and her group. And the whole group was recording together. That's how it used to be back in 1982. They would
I
record,
I could imagine.
yeah, sectionals, musicians, nothing electronic. All they called it not analog at that time. With the 2-inch tape, mixing down to quarter-inch or half-inch, depending on the necessity from the label.
Yes.
I'm behind Fausti, and I'm just blown away by this huge console, which was the API console at that time on the second level. They had several studios. I didn't know. As time went on, I learned. Um, and John Fausti turns around and says, "So you're the new squirt in town?" And I say, "Yeah, I'm here to do the internship." So he says, "Oh, okay." So I'm sitting there. I'm not really sitting there. I'm just standing there, just blown away. I'm seeing the musicians. I'm seeing what's taking place and things of that nature. And then he turns around and he asks me, "By the way, do you have a joint?" The hair that I had on my head just grew. I felt like I had a big time afro because I didn't know how to respond to him. I didn't know if he was testing me to see if I'm a character that does drugs or whatever. I had no idea. But in the industry back then, that was part of the industry.
All right.
The many hours that you worked in the studio. I learned that in recording sessions, there were times where musicians, they'll put out their little bottle, their liquor, they'll have their cigarette. Uh, they didn't really smoke the weed in the studio. They would go outside, type of thing,
All right.
depending on who the artist was. But as I'm there, a young teenager learning, I'm also being taught the appropriate way, which is hands-on experience. So
Yes.
yeah, it's something very important uh, because it opens your eyes to something because you're physically doing it. You're physically moving a cable. You're physically getting to know the difference between one cable and the next cable and what the applications are for. So as an intern, I learned with the assistant engineers and how to prepare a recording studio setup for the different type of genre. We would have a merengue session one time. We would have a salsa session. We would have those were really more or less the two type of sessions that always came to
All
Light
right.
and Sound. Because in
Okay.
1982 there were only two big recording studios in New York City as far as Spanish music was concerned, and it was
All right.
called La Tierra Sound, the dirt sound, the real sound that you get out of music, yeah, okay? And that
All
is
right.
where that was the recording studio of Fania record label,
Okay.
okay? Uh,
Yes.
Herb Greenbaum was the recording engineer, the main recording engineer. Every now and
Mm-hmm.
then, Fausti would go over and record as well. And
Right.
yeah, and there were times where the console didn't work properly, and they would hit it, boom, and
Mm.
it would work, to get the kinks out of it. You
Got you.
So between Latin Sound Recording Studios and
Mm-hmm.
La Tierra Sound Recording Studios, those were the only two Spanish recording studios in New York City back in that time. Okay.
Right.
And also back in the time, uh, the independent record companies that were on 10th Avenue from uh,
Yep.
42nd Street to, I believe, 55th Street,
Yep.
you had all the distributors that distributed Spanish music. Okay.
All right.
And they were the ones that were, it wasn't the big companies like RCA back in the day, uh, CBS Records. CBS, they dealt with the top of the line artists. They were not,
All right.
it was the independent record labels that really pushed the artists. When they became popular, then the bigger labels took an interest on the artists. Okay.
Okay.
It was a whole different ball game back then.
So, all right. Another question I'm gonna ask you is this: when it was merengue acts, was it like merengue acts that was well established, or was it up and coming merengue acts from the Dominican Republic or Dominicans who were living in New York at that time?
Yeah, at that time there was a lot of Dominicans living in New York, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and of course there were a lot of Dominican artists back in the Dominican Republic performing all the time. And in New York in the 80s, there were a lot of Spanish clubs. So the music, it was hot. It was really hot here in New York with Spanish music. There would be a group that would play 5 gigs during the night. Check that out.
Mm.
They would do one set at Copacabanas, and they would run over to another set, and then do another set at the different studio Broadway, and they would go and they would spend the whole night going from one place to the next, one place to the next, one place to the next, and that was a beautiful moment in Spanish music here in New York City, as far as merengue was concerned, as far as salsa was concerned at that time. Those were the two genres that performed a lot.
At that time, because
Yeah.
my mom always used to tell me about a club, I guess it's closed now, but maybe you would know it since you grew up in that time. Um, it was a club called a Gabarojeño,
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. Very popular club back in the day.
and they said that club, like during the 1950s and 60s,
Uh-huh.
catered to a lot of Dominican artists at the time. You know, the Odis Valladares.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Who else? Who else? Ramon Garcia.
Hmm. And most
Well,
likely Tito Puente at
Jo-
the time too.
Tito Puente, Johnny Pacheco,
Yeah. Yep.
and the late great Johnny Ventura also. So therefore,
Right.
it was like one of the. They say that club was like one of the opening acts when it came as far as merengue in New York.
That is interesting. That's very interesting. That is a beautiful take on that, and that is true. That's how it was back then. Uh, and people came out. People came out. People spent money back then. You know.
Yeah.
Yes. And
So
within the industry, the music sold, records sold, 45s, the singles they sold, the albums sold. People look forward to buying their album, especially if they really like the group. We didn't have the technology that we have today back
all
then.
right.
It was physical. You had a physical merchandise in your hand. That's worth
Yeah.
more. That's worth more than an MP3.
Mm.
And the reason I say that is because back then, uh, with an album or 45, okay, you had information in your hands. Okay, you had
Yep.
the credits. You knew who was the producer. You knew who was the record company. You knew who was the artist. You had that type of information. You learned, wow, this is so and so, or wow, so and so played on this album. You knew all the cats. Even if
Yes.
even if you didn't know them personally, you knew them by name,
All
especially if
right.
you followed an artist. Yes, that's something that's
Yeah.
very missed in today's times. You
Yes,
have
it
to
is.
you have to do a lot of research to find out who did what on what. You know.
So let's talk about your time in the Dominican Republic when you visited and such. So when it was music when I'm talking about the Dominican Republic, what was your experiences? Because you and I, we had a friend in common. May he rest in
Yes.
power. Yes, yes, a good friend of mine's.
Hmm.
May he rest in peace.
Yes. Yes.
Freddie
Yes.
Goldman.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. You just hit me. You hit me with that.
So I'll tell you my experience as far as the urban movement in Santo Domingo or
Okay.
San Pedro de Macorís. In
Okay.
2003, I was quote unquote I was actually you know into rap American
Right.
and a little bit of the reggaeton.
Okay.
So me and my mother, we was up in Calle Trinitaria
Ah,
because that's where my mom had a house. So
gotcha.
my mom my mom had a friend by the name of Eridania. May she rest in peace.
Mm.
So it's like, when you go to Calle Trinitaria right before the military school. So
Gotcha.
like I forgot what it's called, but it's in Belt is another block, but and then is the school is the high school like on the other side. So on that so I'm like by the 27 de Febrero. I forgot what the other block is called, but then in the other block it had a Comado. So
Gotcha.
when I used to walk that with my cousin to the Guaraguao,
Wow.
I was like, okay, we had Eridania had a neighbor.
Okay.
So the neighbor introduced me to her son. Now her son is well, he calls himself Big Daddy U,
Yes.
but he also goes by the name Unimente.
Exactly.
So when me and him we started talking and everything like that, and we went to like his god no his compadre's house that was recording at the time. I was listening to some of the music. Well,
Okay.
my mom, she was very traditional because she didn't understand rap as for anything. So I was listening to some of the music. I was like, yeah, I like it. I was supposed to meet Big Daddy U like in 2005 or such, but then
Right.
I was there. Then I had to go to my father place up in Consuelo and everything like that.
I used to love Consuelo going to the market over there with my great
Yes,
auntie,
um,
Federica
I mean,
Wise.
mhm. And it was like, so that's how I got introduced as far as the rap movement in the Dominican Republic in 2003 when people were still on that reggaeton tip.
Gotcha.
Now when it became 2007, I was just I this is when YouTube wasn't YouTube. So I was like, I was bored. Let me just look at Dominican rap. So
Okay.
one of the first raps, I think it was 2006 or 2007, if I'm not mistaken. One of the
Yeah.
first Dominican raps that I heard was Calle Calle. So
Uh,
it was it was by the artist, that he's now famous, Lapis Consciente,
okay.
Hoa.
Yes. Yeah.
So they went under the name of Charles Family.
Okay.
So after a while, I started talking to Unimente and stuff. He was like, "Yo, this is gonna be somebody that's gonna be coming out." I was like, "I bet." So the first time I got put on to as far as the other side of the Dominican rap movement was when I heard Nome de Cotorra by Vaquero. And then
Gotcha.
when I heard that he was from San Pedro, I was like, okay, what block? It was like Toconang and Miramal. I was like,
Right.
gotcha. I was like, gotcha. And it just so happened that Vaquero at that time lived in the same block as my cousin. But
Okay.
since Vaquero was doing the shows and everything like that at Dominican Republic at the time, it was his brother that I went up and I contacted with Jacinto. Shout out to
Ah,
Kuning 23.
there you go.
That's my
Yes.
dude right there. So I went up and I hit up Kuning like in Facebook. I was like, yo soy, mira, me llamo Don Armando, pero yo tengo familia allá en Ignacio Aria, en Miramar. Oh,
Wow.
sí,
Ignacio
sí.
Aria. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, sí. Mi prima es la maestra Joan de Universidad Central de Este. Ay, sí, yo conozco a ellos, sí. Mira, soy familia de ellos.
Uh-huh.
And, that's when I started talking to Vaquero. By the time that I met Vaquero, I knew everybody in his team.
Got you.
It was like, for example, the first time I met Vaquero, like it was a party. It was like 20. I'm trying to think. It was like around 2010 or 2011, if I'm not mistaken. It was at a bar in Dykeman called Euro El Tina.
Okay, I see.
So they had like a special party for the Macorizanos,
Right,
like for the people who are doctors and everything like that within the
yeah,
United States.
right. The
So
professionals.
yeah, so I went there. I was like, all right. I went there and I talked to the late Ramon Anibal. May God rest his soul.
Amen.
And it was a good time. I met Vaquero. I was actually on the stage when he performed. It
Oh,
felt
okay.
like it felt like a legend and everything like that. You saw how Francis Belliard was a good manager at that time for Vaquero. You saw how he attended to everything. So it was like a good first-hand experience just being around Vaquero. I could say
Oh,
that.
okay. Good, good, good. That's very good to hear. That's
One
very
thing that one thing I want to know,
yes.
since you're a pillar as far as the Dominican movement in San Pedro de Macorís, I want you to tell me how you came, like how was your experience in San Pedro de Macorís when the music first started.
Very good, very good. Well, my family, they came from the south and they settled in San Pedro de Macorís, right in that area in Miramar, Barrio Miramar, cerca de Toconal.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, so every time I would go out there and things like that, I would listen to music to see what's going on in the movement, what's happening. And I noticed that the young kids, the young generations, music, they took an interest into music. Okay, and there was this one group called El Grupo Nido, and I heard them. They had a song spinning on the airwaves called Poco Tiempo. So I asked my sister Laura, "Hey, do you know that group?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you know any of the members of that group?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, if you see one of them, tell them I would like to talk to them." And it so happened one day she bumped into one of them, and which was a
Oh,
Jose, you know, and he came and he brought down. He came with a MC School D, and then they came over. We sat down. We started talking, and what I took an interest was what I noticed was this: they had something that was catchy. All the kids knew the song, okay, and then also they were on the radio airwaves, but there was a problem. The
what
problem
was the
was
problem?
the music that they were utilizing. They utilized it was playero music, okay,
Right.
which was common, okay. That was the thing that was the movement that was happening. All the kids were stuck on playero back then. But
Yes, I remember.
yeah, as far as their music, they had no music. So the one of the first things I said to them, I said, I like uh, what I'm hearing, but you guys need your own sound, your own arrangement, your own music arrangement. They didn't
Right.
they didn't really understand, you know. So as I sit down and I speak with Jose and get to know them, they tell me a little bit about them. I tell them a little bit about who I am, and they took a liking into that. Wow, he's an engineer. He's looking to produce someone, and because I had a vision of putting a recording studio in San Pedro de Macorís,
Right.
and I had the equipment here in New York,
All right.
And I wanted to set something up where if I'm over there, I could still do some work, and also put it where if anybody wants to do anything, they could rent it out and work as
Right.
well. Okay, because I looked all around, I didn't see not a recording studio in San Pedro. Everybody had to
I
go
I
either
I I,
to
I could attest to that because
yeah,
I remember as a kid and everything like that
yeah,
walking to the streets up in San Pedro. I
yeah,
mean, I remember it was like whenever I was a kid up in San Pedro. I'm talking about the early '90s. I
right,
remember
okay,
back in the day, I used to be with my aunts, and
uh-huh.
you remember the old way that you could go to the malecon. You could go with the carriage
And
and
the
with the horse
carriages,
and carriage and
yeah,
everything.
exactly. A beautiful moment, man. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, so after I'm sitting there talking to them, they give me a rundown on their repertoire. They give me a rundown on how they recorded. They told me that they went to a discoteca. There was a guy there. They let him use the mic, and the way they did it, they had the mic, and after one person rapped, the other passed the mic to the next guy. He rapped it. They would pass the mic around each other without
All
stopping,
right.
without stopping, and
Got
then
you.
they would record it to a cassette, and that cassette tape they would take that to the radio station, and they would play it from
Okay.
there. That's how it was back then,
I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah. Of course.
So they had no clue, I have to be honest, who I really was and what was I about. But I took
All
them
right.
on. I took them on as a project because
All
I
right.
like I like what I was hearing. They were a
Mm-hmm.
popular local group, uh, and they had something. They had that magic in them at that time. They just needed to have their own music. Okay,
Right.
that identifies them as who they were and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I had a tag team partner, and the person that was with me at the time was Mappa, you know, and
Mappa.
yeah, DJ Mappa.
Yo.
Yeah.
Talking about DJ Mappa. I'm gonna tell you a story. I'm gonna tell you a story of DJ Mappa.
Okay. And I'm going to tell you
Uh,
one. You're not going to believe this one, but I'm going to tell you one after I hear yours.
all right.
Uh-huh.
Now, when Big Daddy U was telling me about DJ Mappa, right?
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh yeah, DJ Mappa is this big dude in New York." I was like, "How come I never heard of him?" And this was
Gotcha.
2003.
Gotcha. There's a reason you haven't heard of
2002,
him.
2014.
Right.
I was I was doing the energy sales, so everybody went like on in Grand Concourse where everybody had the energy bill, so therefore they could get customers or whatever.
I
Okay, that
remember
was
that.
my job.
Okay.
So one day I see a man with dreads and everything like that, and we were just talking Spanish and
Uh-huh.
English.
Okay.
Next thing you know, he was like, "Yeah, I know about music." I was like, "I'm DJ Mappa." I was like, "Get out of here." I was like, I was a Big Daddy U, and he always mentioned you. He was like, "Yeah, that's my dude." So me and him, we
Mhm.
were talking, and he was right beside his wife.
Gotcha.
So and then just maybe a month or two ago, me and my friend Sombra, we were just
Right.
talking about we
Yeah, I remember Sombra. I haven't seen him in ages.
yeah, my boy is Sombra 4G, because there's different Sombras around. So my boy
Ah, I got you.
Sombra, right? So
Uh-huh.
my boy Sombra, he was like, "Yo, you know DJ Mappa?" I was like, "I met him." So
Yeah.
that was a common name, and I started listening, and I remember listening to the old CDs that Big Daddy used to give me, and it was with him and DJ Maffa.
Right.
So So therefore, that's how I got familiar with the name. So tell me of how you and DJ Maffa, you
Oh,
know.
okay. His father owned a recording studio in Uptown Manhattan. Okay.
All right.
It was near 181st Street in the four tower buildings that are underneath the highway.
Yes.
He was on the Amsterdam side. So he
All
had
right.
it in the apartment on the 11th floor. Okay,
Mhm.
he constructed it into a studio. It was kind of cool. He just converted it.
All right.
Uh, and his father bought all this equipment. He knew about the equipment, but he wasn't an engineer. So
Oh,
somebody had recommended me to record at Mundo Francisco's recording studio. And
mhm.
when I did the job, Mundo liked how I work with the client, and he offered me to be one of the engineers there at the studio. And
All
I said,
right.
okay. And as time went along, we were doing a lot of recording studios independent for different artists that came that wanted to record. I remember Rocabanda was there when Quinito Mendez was with Rocabanda, and
Right.
they recorded a song that became popular. Y si tú no trabajas, ¿qué tú buscas en la calle? That song became very popular.
Right.
And one day, uh, Mappa comes to the studio, and his father introduces, hey, Anthony, este es el hijo mío, que vino recientemente de Santo Domingo. Eh, Él va a venir después de la escuela y qué sé yo qué, para que tú le enseñes, chincito a chincito, qué sé yo qué. So the son took an interest, and I said to him, okay, but I put him to the test.
Mm.
And the test was, let me see if he's really serious. Because I went to the old school way of recording and I learned the proper way. Okay. And I didn't waste
Right.
any time in learning. I learned from professional recording engineers like Sammy Velasquez, uh, David Rodriguez, eh, eh, Jose Mendez, people in the industry. If you was to pick up a record, you would see all these credits, these people. You would know them.
Right.
You would feel that you was a part of the family because you knew them. So
Hmm.
I said to myself, let me see if he's going to do something that I asked him to do. Because, with young kids, they're going to either say no or they're going to, put up a type of attitude way. So I said
Right.
something. I said, oye, vete para allá abajo al restaurante de los cubanos y tráeme un café, un cappuccino, tráeme. So he went down. He went down. Boom, boom, boom. He found the restaurant, came back up with the cappuccino, and I said to myself, "Este quiere prender," because he didn't question me. He just went and up, and he went and he got it.
Yep.
So the first task I gave him, I said, "Now the second test was, let me see how he fares with this task." Mundo had a box of just cables thrown into the box, a whole bunch of cables, all kind of cables.
All
So
right.
I say to Mapa, venga, te voy a enseñar, yo quiero que tú desenredes todos tus cables, porque nosotros necesitamos saber qué tipo de cables son. Así tirado, uno pierde tiempo buscando un cable.
Right.
So I showed him how to unravel the cables. I showed him how to tie the cables up. I showed him how to spool the cable. And I showed him because I was taught in this manner myself. And I said, the reason you do it this way is because if you do it the other way, you're going to break the cable eventually. And that's the hand over the underarm, that's how you break the
Right.
cable. You stretch it. I said,
Yeah.
no, you put it in one hand and you go around and around and around and around until it becomes like a circle. And when it looks like it's going to get tangled, then counterclockwise it, and then it spools off. and then it gets straight again. And then I said to him, now check this out. I threw the cable from one distance of the room to the next. I said, you see how straight the cable went? So in the industry, when you don't want to have downtime. You want your session to go smooth, right? And you want
Right.
everything to work. Anytime there's downtime, the client gets uptight. The client would say when it comes time to pay, they'll say, "Oh, well, you took an hour trying to figure this out," and blah blah blah, and they don't want to pay that
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so that's what we call downtime. So um, I showed him always the appropriate way of how to work, how to do the basic important things. I showed him how to break down. I showed him how to set up. I showed him everything little by little. So
All right.
I also showed him how to work with MIDI, and he learned pretty quick. He learned pretty quick on how to create
Mm-hmm.
beats and stuff like that. I showed him how to work with samplers. I showed him a little bit of everything, and I even every depending on who the client was, I would sit him down to record uh, the client, but I would be assisting him. So I would play the reverse role,
All
you know,
right.
so that he could get that experience.
Yes.
Okay. So as he started to grow and learn, uh, I like that because I started seeing the positivity in him, because all you have to do with anyone is give them that opportunity if they're hungry to really want to learn, you know?
Yes.
Okay. Because I got that opportunity. People showed me. So I'm the type of person I like to show because I know the importance of showing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
When you don't show nobody, they don't take an interest, and it becomes a problem later in life for them.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's always good to, that way that person understands what they're doing all the time,
Okay.
and and then they know how to resolve a problem easily, because
Yeah.
they got the appropriate training. So he grew, he learned uh, in the New York area, uh, with the friends that he made in school. They would come down to the studio. He started learning how to do the beats and putting it together and things of that nature. Till this one day, he got the opportunity of a lifetime and was to produce a whole album for two rappers. I'll send you that track so you can enjoy that track. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I said to myself, he learned. He learned the right way. He knows how to do the MIDI. He knows how to synchronize the MIDI with the analog. He knows how to put everything together because you have to show people, you know. When you show people, you start to see, hey, that's how he learned. That's how he learned. His father had a recording studio. There was somebody there that was dedicated in teaching him. I mean, he was dedicated himself in wanting to learn. That's how we started to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Then, when we hooked up, we started producing El Grupo Nido together as a team, you know.
Right.
And I'll send you two of the tracks that he did on the album and stuff
All
like
right.
that. Yeah. And little by little, a lot of the kids in DR in San Pedro de Macorís, they started inclining to us. I would get kids coming over to the house when they knew I was in the country, and they would show me their stuff, their product. I would take my time. I would sit down with them. I would listen to them. I would say, okay, this is a nice song. That's a nice lyric. I think that we could do this and we could do that. I gave a lot of them that opportunity. I believed in their music. I sat down. I took
Yes.
my time. I worked with them. One of the people I worked with was Vaquero. Vaquero, he was like the rebel of Toconal back in the day. You know,
I I I know the story.
ah,
Kind of,
uh huh,
but
uh
I
huh,
kind of heard the story because it was like, for example, right?
Uh-huh.
I know my boy, Roberto,
Yeah.
the one that is called Hura.
Uh-huh.
That's a good friend of mine.
Okay.
Even though I haven't spoken to him, but I'm trying to. But the last time I was up in San Pedro, I was looking for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, good. Uh yeah, so a lot of the young kids came to me because they said, wow, there's a producer and blah 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 and blah blah blah. And I was always humble with them. You know, I would take my time, I would listen to them. If I couldn't see them at that day, I'd say, okay, come back so certain day, or I would go to them, you
All
know,
right.
and I would show them, I would embrace them, and I would, because I like what I was hearing. They just needed that help in creating their own music. Okay, now mind,
Yes.
no one had a computer back in the day. That was, you know how it is in DR.
Yeah.
Something like a
Yeah. Of course.
computer, it's like five times what it's really worth.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't easy. But to this day, a lot of the young generation from then that know me well, uh, they always stop by to see me and things of that nature. There's a group I'm actually working with called Afric Dome right now too.
Wait.
They
Wait. Wait. No. Talking about Alfred Dome, right?
uh-huh.
Um. It's funny because I was. I used to be on. I remember Alfred Dome, MC Pablo, right?
Pablo, yeah.
Yes. So I was.
Carbone.
Yeah. He's actually on my friends list. So me and him, we've talked like, and when it was like the early videos and everything like that.
Right.
So it was like with him, and then I have a cousin
Okay.
that his name is Young Sosa, but one of his cousins, they were producers in the Dominican Republic, and they had a duo called Pintoxi Sofa.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting, interesting.
So
Yeah.
so
Let
it's
me
like
One of the things that I learned is that each of these groups, they had their own magic going on within what they were creating. Okay.
yes. Mm-hmm.
They just needed that help, like I said, in getting the music done and getting the recording done. Now, when I started working with them, there was only two professional recording studios in San Pedro at that time.
All right.
One was from the late Nonito Alvarez, who came from Aruba, a guitar player,
Right.
and he had a really nice studio, 24 track, 1 inch tape recorder machine is what he had. Okay,
All right.
and then we had Pablo Moya. Pablo Moya had a smaller studio setting, very talented musician, and
Mm-hmm.
he was in the Kennedy side. That
Oh
that,
yeah, I
that
know Barrio Kennedy. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And but Pablo did a lot of religious music because his
Yes.
clientele was right. But Nonito took on anything that came his way, you know, and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So I started recording at both of the studios, at Pablo's, and it was funny, how we was doing it. Okay, I would go to Nonito, we would book the time at Nonito, we're recording, and boom, the light would go. I would call Pablo,
So
Pablo,
yo, that used to be the number one hassle.
yeah,
Everybody was like, "Llegó la luz."
uh-huh. But check it out. I would call Pablo, Pablo, ahí lo allá, sí, podemos ir allá, sí, vámonos, whoop. We would go all the way down to Kennedy and we start
Yep.
recording, and the next thing you know, boop, the light will go. So we would go outside and sit there on the sidewalk to see if it would come back. And then
Yeah.
Nonito would call me, the light is over here, come on over here. And we would rush over there. We were hustling back from studio to studio.
Yo. Yeah. I could imagine that.
Yeah, but we got it done. That's how we got it
Yep.
done. Now, what was funny, the way we managed to do it, Pablo had an analog studio. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, he did the investment and he turned it into a digital studio. It became
All
an
right.
8-track digital studio.
Mm-hmm.
Nonito, the difference with the both of them was this. Nonito had his studio set up to record a group, a band, but a lot of the groups recorded in the capital, right? Or in Santiago, but they would record
Yeah.
recording engineers that they knew.
All right.
Okay. Nonito was new on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But when I came around, I gave Nonito a hand that was a hand that helped him out a lot because I little by little I introduced him to the digital world as far as uh, digital hard disk recording, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as far as doing MIDI work for the younger generation, because I used to tell you, Nonito, this is the generation you got to take on because this generation, they're the ones that are hungry. They're the ones that want to do something. The bachateros, the tipiqueros, the merengueros, they are already doing what they're doing, but at studios that they're comfortable at working at. Nobody's going to come out
All right.
here unless the person lives here. And it was true. In San
Yeah.
Pedro, you had Marcos Caminero. He had a band.
Right.
There was another guy. I forget his name. He had a band. He had a bachatero band. And there was I would say maybe 3 to 4 groups, but they were already used to going either to La Romana or to the Capital to record.
So so talking about the capital, right?
Yeah.
During the time that you was going back and forth from the Dominican Republic, right? Were you only based in San Pedro, or you went to the capital as well when it came
Oh,
to acts?
yeah. I would go to wherever a client wanted me to record them. Sometimes they were assigned to go to MCA recording studio. I would go. You know,
Hmm.
I would do the
So
work.
at this, so
Uh-huh.
so at the time in the capital and in Santiago, which was
Right.
like at the time, which was like the most modern studio that you came
Well,
across between those two towns?
the most modern at the time was MCA. Okay,
MCA,
very
okay.
popular. Yeah, very popular in the capital. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in in the north side of the country, which is where you had the bachateros and the tipiqueros, they would go to Audio Enfi to record in Santiago.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they would record to 1 inch tape, okay? But in the capital, they were already recording to 2 inch tape, 24 tracks, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big difference between the configuration of the machines and the, the width of the sound of the audio. Big difference.
Yes.
So, as the years went down, I went a lot of times to DR, and one day I got hired by Luis Vargas because Luis Vargas
Wow.
he was building his recording studio and he wanted to expand. And through Mundo, Francisco Raimundo, the owner, the father of DJ Mapa, he
Right.
recommended this. This is funny. This is how they set out looking for me. At the time, uh, Mapa's father had a partner,
All
and
right.
they had broke up, and they couldn't continue with the studio after making the investment. So they
Right.
they they went part ways and things like that. So Luis Vargas wound up with a good part of the equipment,
All
okay?
right.
Because the late Martin Arroyo, piano player, Dominican blood, but he was a more on the salsa side. Okay.
All right.
He used to play with Conjunto Fascinación. That was Pete Nader's group at the time, salsa group from here in New York. You know?
Right.
So he had a tie with Luis Vargas, and he also had a tie with NBC. NBC, when they would get rid of, they would do their sales of getting rid of equipment because they were always getting new stuff. He got a lot of stuff for Mundo and for Luis Vargas through NBC. You know.
Yeah.
So they needed to install all that stuff in DR. So they came out, they found me, and they offered me to go out there to work with them and things like that. When I went out there, I saw the picture. I said, yes, I'll stay here. I'll work with you guys. I'll help get your engineers up to par with the digital format. Because his engineers, none of them were familiar with the digital world. Okay. You know, as time goes on, you got to evolve with the technology.
Right. But at that time, they were not familiar with that.
Not at all. Not at all. They were actually frightened. You know, none of them never had never dealt with a computer. It was a whole different learning curve. Everybody was used to recording at Luis en el estudio El Dolor. So each studio had a name off of one of his hits.
All right.
Studio A was called El Dolor, right?
Yeah.
Studio B was called Loco de Amor. That was the new studio that they were building. Okay.
All right.
Now he had a little side studio around the building that was going to be for like just doing commercials, or even rappers could use it, you know, because they, yeah. So I named that studio. What was the name I gave it? I gave it El Tomate from one of his hits.
All right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then he had a rehearsal studio. Okay. Yeah, a really beautiful complex. I'll send you the picture of what the studio looked like and everything.
All right.
So when I started working with Luis, right, he got all the gear that Mafa's father had. He had all the top of the line gear, but his engineers had to learn all of that, how to use all that gear. They were not familiar with it. So they were not. And then Luis, he wanted to automate Studio B. Automation came into play. None of them are used to none of that stuff. Okay?
Right.
So we got all the gear. We set out here in New York, me and Louis, looking for stuff and buying this and buying that and buying the other until we got everything into play. We took it to DR. We got it installed. We worked with Luis Nina, one of the #1 tech guys in the country. And we teamed up. I put everything together for him in the way I wanted it to appear so that it was simple for the engineers. And then as everything came into play, I started teaching the engineers about the equipment, what they could do, etc. They started taking a liking to the stuff because they had a hand. You know what I'm saying? Somebody was teaching them. And the studio became, Amphi was always the #1 recording studio in Santiago. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, because all the artists went to that recording studio to record. That was like the first recording studio on the north side of the country. You know? And
so
then,
all right, so out of those two record studios, right?
Right.
Which one of the most legendary Dominican performers that you have worked with? I'm talking about the ones that that are considered royalty forever in our eyes.
Aventura.
Okay.
Aventura was a group that they used to. The name of the group was The teenagers
Those
watch out.
teenagers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Elvin Polanco, producer for here for New York.
Hmm.
Boy, he's my boy. Very humble gentleman. Down to earth. Hard worker in the industry. Hard worker. And
Yeah.
he had the group. He took ill. He got sick. So what he did, he spoke to another producer, and he gave the group to the other guy because he had to tend to his health, right? So
Right.
the other guy, they changed the name of the group. That's when they became Aventura. Okay.
Hmm.
Now that first album from the teenagers was the same album for Aventura. The difference is that they corrected a lot of stuff in the first album. They made it sound better, but it was the
Mm.
same songs. They just,
I didn't know that.
yeah, they cleaned up a lot of the stuff. They cleaned up a lot of the stuff.
Hmm.
And believe it or not, Aventura, before they became popular, they were the ones
Yes.
responsible for recording Elvis Martinez.
Hmm.
And Elvis Martinez, his first album, was a big time hit here in New York because they promoted it here
Yes.
first. Directo al
Hmm.
Corazón. And we
Yep.
recorded that. It was recorded by Edwin Ten, recording engineer, producer as well. And it was recorded at Henry Hierro's recording studio in Uptown Manhattan.
Right.
Henry Hierro had a professional recording studio and stuff like that. 2 inch. He had all the formats that it was common at the time. So you see how things came into play with different artists facilitating their place for other artists. So
Yes.
you know, everybody gave everybody a hand. It wasn't about, oh, no, no, no. If they needed to use the studio, they would rent it out to them, that type of thing.
Right.
So
Another
yeah,
another question I gotta ask.
uh-huh.
When I was young,
Hmm.
I used to and I didn't really speak Spanish that good.
Okay.
Well, that's another story. But when I was a young kid, I always was I used to listen to Projecto Uno,
Okay.
Sandy Papo,
Right.
and what was the other group? Oh yeah,
You had
DOD.
right. You had several groups at the time.
Yeah, so around that time, that's when I was listening to anything. And when I was like, and at first I didn't even listen to the original Humiana, right?
Got you.
So when I went up and I was like, yo, mom, Kuko Vangoy. She was like, how you know about that? I'm like, I never listened to this man. I never listened to this man's music ever. I just remember that man's face every time I went to my aunt's house and they got a record of Kuko Vangoy.
Mm. I see. I see. You know,
Yeah.
Kukabalo, to this day, he's still my idol. I've worked with him in the past here in New York, and
Hmm.
he's funny as hell. And his son Ramon Orlando, he would
Yeah.
be he would be snapping on his pops all the time. And so he would be
Uh,
telling us all kind of stories. Oh, when they went to Colombia, when they went to here, when they went to there, and stuff
yeah, it
like
was
that.
like it was like my mom, well, when she was living in the capital, right? This was
Yeah,
before Kuko Vangoy was Kuko Vangoy.
right.
My mom used to tell me stories of
Mhm.
when she used to walk up on God Square in the capital.
Okay.
When it was Kuko Vangoy and Martin, they used to just play in the streets.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yes.
they became los ahijados.
Hmm. After
They
the
become
compadres.
right. Yeah, they would play a lot of songs. He loved this. the sound of song from Cuba, you know?
Hmm.
You know, uh, Cuca Aloy came and he did el primer carnaval de merengue up here in the Bronx, in the Boogie Down Bronx, in el
Right.
Teatro de Puerto Rico. That was like the coldest day on earth. Now, there was like about 10 groups that came out, okay?
Right.
And don't you believe that the 10 groups that came out to perform played for a handful of us that was in the theater? That's how
Hmm.
cold it was. Nobody came out. Nobody came out. And I think it had to do with the promotion. I was a young kid. I was, nobody really came out, but they played for all of us. You had
Yep.
you had Cuco Baloy, you had Joseito Mateo, you had Primitivo Santos, you had
Primitivo Santos. I've
uh-huh.
actually listened. I've actually listened to his music sometime. May he rest in peace also.
Oh yeah. Great talented musician, you know.
So when you met the late great Jose Mateo, how was he as a person?
Funny as hell. He's a showman. Joseito Mateo is a showman. And the reason I say it's a showman because he's a guy. He's like the perfection of what he's doing. He was like a Michael Jackson. That's where
Yeah.
exactly. That is where Johnny Ventura got his style from, off of Michael Jackson. You know,
Right.
each artist did their thing in their own way, but it worked. It worked.
Yeah.
Okay, and they all took pieces off of artists that they liked. Like earlier, you was talking about a little bit about the past and rap. Um,
Yeah.
and do you know what was one of the first rap songs popular recorded with musicians in the Dominican Republic? Dominicans, they like the comedy, la comedias, right? So
Was that High Dinero with Wilfrido Vargas?
no, not that one. That was more modern at the time. No,
Okay.
this one was by Freddie Goico and Baruga, because they used to do a
Yeah.
lot of comedy acts in the past.
Right.
And they came out with a song, but the song was a spin-off off of the Sugar Hill Gang that was very popular. Everybody in
Oh
DR loved,
wow.
yeah, everybody in DR loved the Sugar
Now,
Hill.
now, 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 now you taught me something because I've always thought that when Wilfrido Vargas went up, he made that
Uh-huh.
song when he made that song with Eddie
Eddie,
Herrera
yeah,
spitting something that was supposed to be English, but it didn't sound legible. So
gotcha. No, you're right. You're right. You're right.
yeah,
You're right. You're right. But the intent worked. The intent worked. Wilfrido Vargas has a merengue song by the Beatles. They did a cover song. Uh, I don't know if you remember Michelle. Michelle, my belle, la di da da.
hmm
Okay, I swear to you, the person that's singing it in English, you don't understand anything, and that has a lot to do with the directing in the recording studio. You have to direct people to make sure that they're pronouncing properly. Otherwise, you're gonna kind of understand it, but you're not gonna understand it. You know?
all right. Another. I got
Uh-huh.
one question for you.
Yeah.
In your years of recording and everything like that, what was the worst music session that you ever came across? And
Anthony Roberts taking over for another engineer so that engineer can eat at Supremo Records recording studio, okay, in Luis Vargas recording studio, and
right,
Antonio El Genio, that's his nickname, says to me, "Ay, Anthony, aguántame aquí para yo comer algo." We had a cafeteria, okay,
all
outside.
right,
So I said, okay, yeah. I'm thinking that it's gonna be a smooth session. You know who the artist was?
Who?
Pepita La Grande. And you know what the problem was?
No me diga.
Te estoy diciendo. You know what the problem was? The musicians would be fighting with each other. Because, esta corte, no, que no va así, que se va. Everybody fighting with each other. Even Pepita, mandándole un coño al otro y qué sé yo qué. And then I'm, I'm seeing what the hell is going on. And I said to myself, no wonder they haven't recorded what they're supposed to record. They got like 2 days trying to record a song and they don't get it.
Damn.
I yelled out, I said, "Cállense!" And all I heard was Pepita say, que no hable nada, que el americano va a hablar. And I said, oye, espérate. Vamos a hacer esto como tenemos que hacerlo. Vete allá adentro. Ustedes, pa. Estos son los cortes, pa. You have to direct them. If you do not direct them,
you will have the worst track ever. Yes,
exactly. They're gonna be all over the place. And they had like 2 days trying to record a song, and they were fighting with each other constantly, fighting with each other. But at the end of the day, the song got done the proper way. You know, a lot of times, you have to have somebody to direct you. Either if you're gonna rap, either if you're gonna sing, either if you're gonna play an instrument, because you may think you're doing okay, but see, they have that extra ear. They're listening to what you do. You know.
Yeah.
So they want everything to come out perfectly. So if you have to do that take a couple of times till you get it, it has to be done that way.
Yeah. One thing that when I actually thought that I was doing it the right thing, but then when I was in the studio, it was a lot of work. So therefore, I was like, you know what? It was a good experience when me and my homie was making that song. We made a song called Barrio Calentón. But then it was just that it was. I could actually say that tragedy happened. So that's why I felt that's why I fell back as far as the music scene. But I still talk to people within the Dominican urban scene. Right. So my thing is that when I made this program called Historias Urbanas con Don Armando,
yeah,
it's that me and my friend Don D, right? Because he's actually on audio. He's actually a producer, and he learned from IAR, I believe, and he's a rapper.
Okay.
So me and him, we were talking about me, him, and a friend named Joey Oye. We were just talking about the old times. So he was like, "Hold up, you see how we were talking and everything like that?" I was like, "Yeah,
yeah."
Like you should go around and make a show because you was there. Like you actually studied the artists and everything like that." And Don D was like, "Yo, this guy." He was telling Joey Oye the story. He was like, "Yo, this guy's just not like okay." He's gonna be the guy like, "Hey, how you doing?" or whatever. This guy studies you. He actually knows what you're doing and everything. And he was talking about me. I was like, "Yeah," because if I'm gonna go talk to somebody,
yeah,
I want to come and talk to them correct. So
got you. Yep.
So my thing was it's like I was just talking to artists and everything like that, getting to know them. And it was like kind of like the same thing because LDA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Baby Psycho is one of my good friends. So he invited me to a club. This was like around December 2013 or something like that. So I went to show my support and everything.
Okay.
Lo and behold, I was just giving my business cards out, right?
Right.
So I gave my business cards, and that was the first time that I met my homie MC Johan and Ambush.
Okay.
So it was like, oh yeah, we like you be up like we're in your group and everything like that. And we just started talking. So I'm not good. So there's certain stories that I could say that I've known people, but it's like maybe one of these days, like whenever I get certain stuff situated,
Right.
I would like to actually maintain an honest business relationship also.
Okay.
Because well, one thing that I'm seeing within the Dominican urban movement, right?
Yeah.
And with social media and it's being advanced and everything,
Hmm.
one thing that I'm seeing that I'm not liking is that all these independent artists, right? They're
Right.
going around, they beefing over money and they're beefing over this and they're beefing over that, right?
Hmm.
And I know that they're independent, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that I'm not seeing is it's like, okay, if I'm gonna go do a song, or if I'm gonna go and have a certain person to go and promote my record or what have you, right?
Yeah.
My thing is, if we're gonna go and try to do this, I don't want to go and try to do this all on a favor, because when it's a favor and it's nothing which is contractual,
Got you.
that's where the line, in my experience, that's why I see that the lines is blurred. And then on top of it, some of these young artists that we hearing now, they don't even know what is they don't even know, like, okay, what's the contract? Or you could go in and have a name and then somebody could swipe that off you. Or you could actually have a track done and then somebody could swipe that under you. So therefore y'all could say that your group, you could pay all this money and everything like that for an artist, but if you don't have like your rights or
Yeah.
anything like that,
Yeah. Your legal stuff down.
you could actually be bamboozled and you don't even have to be signed. It could be like a higher up company and everything like that.
Yeah.
So
You're
so
saying something that's a reality because I've seen that happen in the Spanish industry as well.
that's what I'm saying. I'm talking about the Spanish industry. So
Right.
my goal with this little show that I have is I'm trying to tell all my Latino brothers, ma- pero
Yeah.
tú sabes mi hermano dominicano y también en San Pedro de Macorís, no, la gente no sabe nada. Pero tú sabes, tiene muchos chanteadores aquí en Nueva York y en otros lugares también. Pero vas a saber, aprenden con leyes de los contratos para ningún gente se van a chantajear a usted o su corrillo.
Listen, it happened in with the Fania record label.
Yeah.
A lot
It,
of artists that I know, and
mhm,
many people know, that never received royalties.
exactly.
The
I,
company knew about it.
I mean, think about it. If you really look at it, right? Like, even though you have certain people who they made their records and everything like that. A lot of them, they didn't get their royalties, and most of them, I hate to say it, if they was not really that business savvy, they did not own their masters.
Same situation. Same situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, there's a reason why they didn't own their masters. There's a reason, and it's
Okay, so what's the reason?
one of the reasons is that whoever the investor was, that investor wanted to make his money back first. Okay.
Oh, all right.
Now, yeah. So if the artist wanted to own their masters, okay, well, you would have to either buy them from the company or come to a mutual agreement, you know, as a percentage
Right.
wise.
Right.
Usually it would be bought when the record company just sells it out.
All right.
But like I give you an example. A lot of times when the the artist would come to the recording studio, uh, you first of all you had to have the record company had to have the masters. That's their only guarantee that they had a product. Okay, and it was
Mhm.
the tapes. Without the tapes, you had nothing.
Right.
You know, um, and usually the tapes were always stored appropriately. You had to keep the tapes in a right environment as well. Like
Right.
At Latin Sound recording studios, all the clients left their tapes at the studios.
All
Now,
right.
some people, when they finished, they took their tapes with them, you know,
Mm.
or the record company would say, send us the tapes, and the tapes would be sent to them.
All
Um,
right.
but as far as people being business savvy, that's where the person has to learn about the music industry,
Right.
and they have to have that understanding. But see, the problem is not a lot of our young generations uh, will pick up a book, will pick up to they're not going to do it.
All right.
So those are the ones that get in the situations that they get in, you know,
Yeah.
because the music industry is interesting. It's become
Yes, it
interesting.
is.
It's even more interesting now than when it was. Like I give you a perfect example. The independent record company back in the day, the way the music got around, not like today. You pop something in social media, everybody gets it right away. They
Right.
literally used that to fly. I give you an example to Colombia. If they had a salsa artist, they would fly to Colombia, sell the rights to another record company in Colombia to take that product out, and fly to Peru and fly elsewhere and sell the product. That's how the product got around.
Oh, wow.
I remember buying because like I said before, Cuco Valoy was my idol. He's still my idol. I remember
Yeah.
buying the same album twice, but it was a different uh, album cover.
All right.
I didn't get it. I thought it was a brand new album, back in the day, and that was because I didn't read what was behind the album,
All
And
right.
then when I put the record, I'm like, oh, but this is the same song from the other album.
Right.
Yeah, other record, but you would note that one album had one record company, the other had another record company.
All right.
And that's how music got around. Because the producers, the record labels, would travel abroad, sell the rights to another record company to put it out.
Mm.
That's how they made the money. Then he would come back with whatever he sold that product for.
Mm.
That's how it worked
So,
back then.
other than the Dominican Republic and that you worked as a audio engineer, did you ever go to, I would say maybe Europe or any place in Asia? I'm just asking because there's
No,
been
believe it or not, no, no. But a couple of people came over. I remember doing the Mauricio Smith Senior's first album production, and
right.
it was a Japanese company. They came over to record it, to
Mm.
record that album. A beautiful album. I was the assistant engineer on that album. It's called Madera. Okay,
Aldera, okay.
yeah, wood.
Hmm.
And I remember from Africa, Sam Mangwana came to New York, and he recorded a whole salsa album in his
Wow.
native language.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
I remember uh, Kassav when they came to they were here on tour. They came to our recording studio, and they recorded a couple of songs there. And
Hmm.
I had I had to fix the piano player's piano. He left this memory mode with me, and he said,
Wow.
"Listen, I don't know what happened with my piano, but see if you can get it fixed, and then send it with the singer, Jocelyn, you know." She was out in Brooklyn, so I got it fixed. It was a minor thing. The fuse in the memory mode was burnt.
Right.
So everybody was surprised because when I took it back to them, they thought it was going to be, a couple of $100. I said, no, it was just a fuse,
Right.
and stuff like that. So they were happy to hear that. So a lot of groups, although I didn't travel, the furthest I traveled to is DR,
Right.
uh, where I worked at with Luis Vargas, a recording studio,
All right.
and we got it up. Just the other day, he called me, wanted me to come down to mix a couple of songs that he's producing. So it'll probably be maybe after Christmas,
All right.
yeah, that I'll travel over there.
All right.
But it's interesting. There are some engineers that do travel throughout the world,
Yeah.
right? But my concentration was always here in New York, and then when I got the job offer in DR with Luis Vargas,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
Nice.
yeah, so I over the years I learned a lot of things from a lot of the artists, a lot of the producers, uh, a little bit of something from anyone, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
So another question I'm gonna ask.
yeah.
So it was just you that took it, that's an audio engineer, or you have several other family members as well who are audio engineers?
You know what it is that I'm the only member. My brother, he's actually an artist. He used to work uh, with Marvel Comics, DC Comics,
All right.
as a letterer. But my cousin, Jose Pineda, he worked at the radio station
All
uh,
right.
back in DR, the AM station Radio Oriente from the late
Yes.
Chino. I don't know if you remember that station.
I think I do.
Yeah, it's still around, but it's more modern now. You know.
Yeah. One thing I'm not gonna go around and say this because I
Uh
used
huh.
to listen to a lot of radio stations,
Yeah.
but you heard about that tragedy that happened in 2017, right?
Yeah, it's a terrible tragedy.
Yeah. It happened. Luis Medina
Hmm.
happened to be the brother of my dad's living wife.
Oh.
So it was just but and it happened on February 14th. When I heard that, I was like, yo, I tried to call my dad. So it
Yeah.
looks like that when his sister heard the news that he was unalived, it
Mm.
was I couldn't get through to my pops since my pops was in Consuelo.
Okay.
So when I heard that and I saw the last name, I was like, yo,
Mm.
that was
No, I
and then
can.
when they told the story about what happened and the aftermath, it was just mind blowing.
Mhm. It was a sad time
Yeah,
in the town, and it's a very sad time for radio. That's
yeah.
that was something that nobody expected.
That no exactly. I mean, let alone from what I heard, it was something that had to do with politics. But the guy, but the people who were unalived, they were
Hmm.
just just regular people that a lot of people within the town respected.
Yeah, yeah, yes, true. It's true.
Yeah.
I wanted to also say one of the persons that gave urban music in the East Coast of San Pedro de Macorís that opportunity. It was from la emisora Aurora FM.
Mm.
Orozco was the partner of the station, and he gave the young generation the opportunity because he saw something. He saw that movement happening, okay, and he
Yes.
inclined to it because he understood that if he had that music played, that he would capture that young generation to listen to the station, and
Yes.
that occurred. Now, at the time, I was producing. Uh, I don't know if you remember a group called Los Federales.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, by Baby Premium, the radio DJ. He was part of that group.
I remember Baby Premium.
Yeah, yeah. He's still at the La 98, 98.
Hmm.
He was also responsible for filtering the music through the
Mm.
radio waves, you know,
Yeah.
because he had that connection,
Hmm.
okay, and things like that. So, we always got to recognize who really gave who a hand. The, the, the,
Exactly.
the problem was like anything else, you had to have clean lyrics. You can't be on the radio talking about stuff that's not a reality, you know?
Because it was like, for example, I remember like it had to be one of those years, and you could, and maybe you might have been in Dominican Republic at that time. Remember that Puerto Rican chick by the name of Glory, and she had an infamous song that she thought that she did not know what it was, but
Okay.
everybody just singing it
Uh-huh.
because it was just odd that a woman was singing it.
Okay.
You know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So at that time, you know that Dominican Republic banned her. Remember entering Dominican Republic, even singing that
Wow.
at that time. At that time, but now
Uh-huh.
you have so many controversial artists. Shout out to Tokisha, by the way,
Okay.
that they actually pushed the envelope with their lyrics and whatsoever.
Right.
That back in those days when the Puerto Rican reggaeton star thought that they was gonna do a concert with bad lyrics or whatever, the
Yeah.
Dominican government was like, "You ain't coming here."
Yeah, yeah. There was a time, you're right about that. There was a time that the government was strict on a lot of things. It's how can I say it? There was a lady, she passed on, Sainaida. She
Hmm.
used all the music had to go through her. Okay.
Wow.
And if there was something that had that double sentido, no, it wouldn't
That's
pass.
what my mom always said. Like in
Uh-huh.
those, even in the Trujillo times, she was like, if there was anybody that had doble sentido in their music, it
Yeah.
could be like, okay, you could say something that could be innocent, but then somebody could understand it for what it really is. It was not being played in Radio Guarachita. It was not being
Uh,
played in nothing.
right, right. Now I'm gonna give you just brief examples. Okay.
All right.
Um, Now when she was there, right, a song like um El tabaco fuerte, pero hay que fumarlo. No, no, no lo bote, no puede botarlo. That was a political song that basically talked about through that era, of Trujillo. El
Right.
tabaco fuerte. It's a strong, you know what I'm saying? You have to
Right.
smoke it, you know? They had
Hmm.
to readjust the lyrics to make it work so it was able to pass. That's a
All
double
right.
sentido political song.
Hmm.
Uh, there's another one. Si sigue apretando la tuerca, se puede dañar la cosa, right? That's
Right.
a that's a really true thing. The more you keep squeezing the people, it's gonna get bad.
Right.
and you don't want that. You want to keep peace within the communities, but you
Mm-hmm.
keep raising the price, and it's what's going to happen. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, that other popular song, El Mudo. Yo tuve una situación con un tipo que era mudo, right?
Right.
Now he's talking about who are you going to vote for? And back in the
Mm.
day, it was, ¿y por quién tú vas a votar por? ¿De qué
Right.
color es tu partido? ¿Y a quién tú quieres para presidente? They didn't want the one that was there. So they made a song.
Exactly. And it was funny talking
It was
about the
funny.
elections, right?
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
like
exactly.
it was like I went to my mom was so scared, right?
Uh-huh.
And I went this was like around it was around 2012.
Okay.
So I went to Consuelo. I was like, Mom, I'm going to Consuelo. She was
Okay.
like, mira muchacho, tú tan loco. I
Hmm.
was like, why? You're going when it's election season, and they like to shoot up and everything like that. I'm like, Mom, I'm gonna be good.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
Mom, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be chilling in my pop's crib. I ain't going out that day. I know what it's about.
Right.
So who I think it was what's his name? I think it was Danilo Medina that won
Oh,
at that
okay.
time. At that time, right?
Right.
So when I went to Consuelo, it was like a club or something like that, and
Uh-huh.
people were glad that he won and everything like that. They
Right.
went up and they had like a part. They had like I I guess you could call it reggaeton or dembow or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was by these young guys on Crazy Design and what's his other name, but it was a new song that I didn't hear in the states.
Oh,
So when I
okay.
was so when I was jamming to it, I was like, all right, cool. I was drinking
Hmm.
my Presidente and everything like that.
Yeah.
It was just a nice vibe up in Consuelo, and that
Mm.
was right before the Patronales.
Wow. Yeah.
And the Patronales in Consuelo is always in July.
Yeah. Yeah. Different towns is different time periods.
And
Yeah.
and and then and then they say in Macorís, the Patronales over there is like in May or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. Yeah. Around that time period. No, June. Around
You
June time.
know?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because we
cause
used to
yeah,
we used to catch it all the time in the summer vacations.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. The industry, over the years, we're seeing new artists, but we're seeing artists going to the extreme. And they come up with the most bullshit excuse. And why I say bullshit?
Yo, yo,
Because
that is like my problem right now. Like, for
uh
example, I'm not gonna go around and name names because
right,
certain people will be hating or whatever. But in the Dominican Republic, there's one guy that there's certain people that they'll be wearing their hair all type of way.
okay,
They want to say they're tigre, but then they do non-tigre stuff. If you get
right.
what I'm trying to say,
Yeah, yeah, I get you. I get you.
and they'll be like, hey, mira, pero yo tengo mi flow y yo estoy rankeado ahora. I'm like, no, you're not, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, yo, I don't know
Yeah,
what this. I don't know what this is.
I,
So
I, I heard this from an artist one day. The person said, well, when you gotta give the people what they want to hear. Because when I was singing all good and everything like that, nobody was paying attention. Now that I come up with something, now everybody's paying attention.
you know what?
And then
That
I said,
that is true now because crap sells. Not pure music now. It's just
right.
crap.
But then I said to the person, yeah, but you know what that's called? Disposable music. He looked at he looked at me. He literally looked at me. It was like he didn't get it at the moment, and then he thought it through. And I said, "Yo, if you look at the history of music, right? Why do you
Right.
think artists become artists? Because they do something that people remember them by.
Right.
Okay,
You cannot go around with the same monotony and think that you're gonna get something different.
exactly. Because if you look at it, right? Okay, I give you what's his name? Uh, okay, we've heard a couple of urban songs that became big, right?
Right.
Right, but then a year, you look back a year, you don't even remember the song.
Right.
You know, yet you look back several years and you remember that one song. You know,
Right.
because that was that was something that caught your attention.
Yep.
You know. Okay, look with the urban, right? I give you an example, perfect example. In the Dominican Republic, all the kids love Bob Marley. Okay,
Hmm.
they know all the songs of Bob Marley, right?
Yeah.
But
So one thing I gotta say this before you
yeah,
say anything. Shout out to my homegirl Dreadlock Diaries, aka Kai Shell, and thank you for showing the love and everything like that. You're all appreciated right here.
I see her. Much respect. Much thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're talking about things that we're familiar with in the industry that
Right.
we've seen firsthand. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that happens. You know, you want music. You know, you want to look back and say, "Wow, yeah, that's a song." 20 years from now, yeah, that's a song. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But when it's disposable music, forget it. You know.
Trust me. It's like yo.
Look. I give you another example. Macarena. Okay, two old guys. Two old guys. Let me tell you, they had people dancing that song up in the Yankee
I,
Stadium.
I remember, like, okay, Macarena became popular like around what year? I'm trying to think. It became popular in the United States like around 97 and 98, right?
Yeah, within that time period. Yes.
So, like when my mom used to watch Telemundo and Univision, right?
Yeah.
Because she always loved their soap operas. Yeah, I still can't get I still can't get that joint out my head. Maria Mercedes,
Yeah.
Mercedes. Anyway, during that time, right?
Uh-huh.
Those two old guys, and Macarena was
Mhm.
not the Macarena that was in the States. There was like I did the Macarena, okay, and then it was like nobody even singing nothing, right?
Right.
When it came to the States, it was like a whole different thing. I was like, what? By the
Yeah.
time that 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 edited version of Macarena right there, everybody was dancing to it. I was like, I ain't feeling this crap because I'm not feeling the Americanized crap of that song. I just remember the old song where it was just two old men just singing, and it was like,
Exactly.
okay,
Exactly.
I'll give you another thing, right?
Uh-huh.
When it was Nori and Big Mato, right? And they had that song, Oye Mi Canto, right? With Daddy Yankee.
Uh-huh.
Everybody will say, yeah, we like that Daddy Yankee joint better. I'll tell you which joint that I like better than anything, but they didn't give it no airplay. I
Mm.
like the first Oye Mi Canto that it had Tego on it.
Ah, because later
Yeah,
on, yeah.
And then they put Daddy Yankee. I was like, yo, they go had like one of the hardest verses in that song.
Mm.
And I was like, Daddy Yankee's verse was good. I ain't gonna front. And
Yeah, yeah,
it made it more popular. But
yeah.
Dago's verse, at that time, I was just listening to it. I was like, yo, his verse at that time was like way harder than Daddy Yankee's verse. I, I ain't gonna lie.
Wow. Wow.
But yet Dago's version didn't get popular. It was just only the version with Daddy Yankee that was played over the airwaves.
Got you. Got you. Got you.
Yeah.
That's kind of like almost like how Jamaicans they do the dance halls. They get that
Right.
one track, they get several artists, and then they throw it out there to see which one the people like. You know?
And they say the ones that don't, they actually have to go around and break the record, and then they make it again because it's just they were doing it by vinyl, by vinyl, by vinyl. I saw a
Yeah.
process
Uh-huh.
like before YouTube was even made it. It was
Yeah.
just like I was watching current TV or something like that when I had cable when I was living in Jersey,
Okay.
and they were talking about that process. Wow,
Right.
and you know what's funny? While I was living in Jersey, I actually met another legend. Well, I don't know if you recognize me now, but the last time I saw that legend was in 2012 in Santo Domingo, El Canario.
Oh, ha, 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 yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, El,
Canario.
El Canario. That's a good dude right there. Whenever
Yeah.
whenever he used to go and buy phones from the cell phone and everything like that, people was like, "Yo, he acts like he's so important." I was like, he is," and it was like, "Oh, so who is he?" And
Uh-huh.
they used to ask me, I'm like, yo, he's a famous salsa singer from the Dominican Republic. So
Let me tell you something. El Canario used to record at a studio called Variety on 42nd Street.
right.
Okay. A lot of artists is recorded there as well. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
there was one thing that I like what he did. Okay, Dominican cat. Okay,
Right.
he worked with people that knew about salsa the right way. Okay,
Yeah.
as a Dominican, he didn't go the other way. Okay, he went with the right people that knew about that genre. That's
Mm-hmm.
why he is who he is. Because Dominican arrangers, they're very good, but when it comes to certain arrangements, sometimes you got to work with the right person for a certain type of arrangement.
Right.
Because I remember there was a time period where people used to say, "Coño, that song, you know, whoever's playing the piano, man, it sounds like a merengue. Doesn't sound like a salsa." So,
Right.
so in music, there's laws. You know,
On how
it's
you have
like
to play a certain genre.
right. The tumbaos, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't play it. Piano has to be relaxed. Not. You
Exactly.
know what I'm saying? No,
Mm-hmm.
laid back. You have to feel that vibe. And
Right.
things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
El Canario, when he would play the merengues always sounded funny. Why? Because the musicians were not merengueros. You know what I'm saying? It just happened. I remember being one time all the way out there in Casa. What is it? Casa de Diablo. ¿Cómo
Casa
es?
de Campo.
No, Casablanca in Brooklyn,
All right.
and he was performing there. You know. Now the saxophone part, the baritone player was playing it, but because they're using the salsa instruments, it doesn't come off. You know.
Right.
It doesn't come off. Now check this. Check this out. Ray Reyes. I love the guy, Ray Reyes. When Ray Reyes, the recording artist, was incarcerated, okay, his his music played all the time. Okay, his music played all the time. Now, when he came out, the vibe changed. You know, the vibe totally changed. You know, and I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. And then as time went on, I started understanding what was going on. You know, people inclined to listening to his older recordings than the newer ones. You know, because it had that. The older recordings had that seasoning. Let's put it like that. You know, like when you go to a restaurant, if the cook is good, people are gonna come all the time. You know,
right?
If they change the cook, people are not gonna come all the time. And so that's the example I give you. When he started working with other arrangements, the arrangements was okay, but it was something missing.
Right.
That inclined that, you know, because the other stuff, people were inclined listening to him, you know, and stuff like that. And that happens, you know, in the industry.
All right. So I got one final question to ask you.
Yeah.
As a in your profession and everything like that, what is your view from about the merengue from the time when you was a kid till now?
Well,
what is your merengue?
Over the years, merengue has evolved, and you have to. If I talk about this, and my friend Junior Varez talks about this a lot too. We cannot stay stuck in time, and unfortunately, a lot of the artists are stuck in time. You know,
give me an example.
Well, perfect example. As time evolves, you also have to evolve with the time, with the way your music sounds, with the type of arrangement that you're doing. Okay, you have to do something a little bit different than what everybody else is doing. To bring attention to that person's ear. We have that for from an example. Me and Junior, we are producing a recording artist, you know, and we did something different. We eliminated the trumpets in merengue.
Right.
You know, we don't want the trumpet. We don't want that. No, we don't want it. You know, and we did something a little bit different, which was more appealing to the audience that were beginning to listen to it. Now, over the years, we also seen a couple of artists do a little something different than what everybody's doing. And those are the songs that stand out. Unfortunately, merengue music has come a long way. Merengue is alive and well. Merengue is not dead.
All right.
That's the expression a lot of people say all the time. Merengue is dead. No, you're dead. You're dead because you're not producing it. You know?
Right.
You're criticizing it, but you're not producing it. So that doesn't help at all. You know?
And it's like, okay, I don't know if you're familiar, but there was a former merengue producer or a band member that Vaquero showed back in the day that he's on bad times. He's living in bad times in the capital.
Okay.
So my thing is that you have certain people that they see some of the people who are talented and stuff. There's like why these talented musicians are having a bad time and everything like that. And certain people be like, we gotta save the merengue or something like that, because these guys were the ones that made that made the songs that we loved back in the day. I was like, yeah, but then I don't know. So therefore, that's why I had to ask your input as an audio engineer, and
Yeah.
you've been around musicians
What
like,
happened? Listen, what happened was that they stopped producing. Okay.
mm, all
So
right,
that's why the merengue started to suffer. Okay.
all right,
Then you had the same artist doing the same thing over and over and over and over. Every decade, the music changes. There's different people listening to music. You have to appeal to the different people, you know?
right. Mm-hmm.
Uh, Remember, there was a time merengue house was the thing. It appealed to the younger generation at the time they listened to it,
Yes,
right?
I remember. Like, what's that guy's name? He's like now the biggest composer in the merengue right now. Henry, is it Henry Garcia? No, not Henry Garcia. Henry Garcia, that's for Cuco Baloy.
Right.
Dag. He was in Los
You're talking
Homeboys.
about Henry, yeah, yeah, yeah. Henry, I'm getting confused with Hierro. Isn't Henry? Ah, okay, but I know
But you
exactly
know
who
what
you're
I'm
talking
talking
about.
about.
Yeah, from the Homeboys. Yeah, yep, yep. I know exactly who you're talking about. Right now, he's the director of Johnny Ventura's son's band in DR.
Exactly.
So we know we're on the same page. Henry
Yeah.
Jimenez. Henry Jimenez.
Henry Jimenez, yes.
I haven't seen him in years. Let me tell you something. That's one of the that's one innovative guy. Okay, because back in the day he was doing things that other arrangers were not doing at all. You know?
Mm.
Yeah.
And I heard that he is actually educated in the United States when it comes to music. The same as Juan Luis Guerra.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. See, here's the thing. Here's the thing. A lot of us get to know the artists because we hear their music, right? But
Right.
we don't really get to know the artists. Not like how the collectors that collect records, albums, they could tell you everything about an artist because they,
Right.
they they do the research, they do the homework, you know. So when they talk, you understand exactly what they're talking about, you know. Uh,
Hmm.
Unfortunately, with today's generation, they have no clue who's who and who was who because they have no resources. What's the resource? The information, the credits. That's the resource. That's how you
Yeah.
know who did what and who. You know what I'm saying? You know, because
Yeah.
back in the day, this is how it worked. When you heard that sound, wow, I like that sound. If you was a recording artist, oh, they recorded it at MCA or they recorded it at Sono Al, or they recorded it at Supremo. You wanted to go to that studio. You wanted that sound. We've seen that
Right.
happen. We've seen that happen in Nashville. We've seen that happen. I see it today. I see it every now and then on TV. How they talk
Uh-huh.
about the vintage studios. The Motown had that sound, they had that unique sound. So
Yes.
they did well. They did well,
Hmm.
you know. Hip hop had that unique sound to what they were spitting, what they were rapping about.
Yeah.
That's why you have underground music that just there's a market for it, but it just goes but so far. You
Right.
know, um, you want to, we all want to hear our music go further, you know,
Hmm.
but sometimes we got to do the changes. We have to adapt to doing something a little bit different than what we're accustomed to doing.
All
Okay.
right.
I remember a rap song that came out. Check out the brand new flavor in the air. The brand new flavor in the air.
Right.
It was a song that, when I first heard it, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I was grooving to it. I like the concept. I like the
Right.
lyrics. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But when you're talking about nonsense, forget about it. Nobody wants to hear that shit.
Yo, I'm like, I ain't gonna lie. It's like I'm gonna be honest, right?
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of I'll be listening to the nonsense rappers. I'm not
Okay.
talking about the famous nonsense rappers. I'm talking about the nonsense rappers that nobody really cares about. And
Okay.
it's like, okay, if I have a bad day, I just listen to them and I just laugh. Because you know that the music's bad, but at the same time, it just makes you laugh. Like how
Yeah.
talented they are. Oh, no. But get this though.
Uh-huh.
I went up and I listened to this guy. Like, don't get it twisted. This guy's talented. His name he goes by the name of Lil B, right?
Okay.
So he went up and made a song and saying, I'm gonna eat whatever, right?
Okay.
So when he made this song, is like, okay, I knows what you can do and what you can't do in the studio.
Right.
This song was so horribly mixed.
Mm.
It was like the song was all over the place. I'll send you the track up in
Okay.
Facebook. So
Okay.
therefore you know what I'm talking about. And it's like, how did this song even become popular? It was just all over the place.
That happens.
Yeah, it was like and then they just put it out there. I was like really? Like this song had like no real coordination.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. That can happen. Yeah, yeah. That can happen at times. That can
Uh-huh.
happen. But you know, a lot of times when that does happen, it happens because there's a reason behind it, you know?
All right.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Give me one little second here.
All right.
Yeah, so I definitely have really enjoyed this opportunity that you've given me to be interviewed.
Yes.
You know, we talked a little bit about everything. Uh, I also think that it's important, you know, for people to hear um, a lot of the things that we've both experienced at different parts of the time, you know,
Right.
from being that intern to becoming a full-fledged engineer
Mm-hmm.
because I the teachings that were taught to me, uh, you know, really made me who I am today within the industry, a respected uh, recording engineer and producer as well.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know, there's more stories to be told one day, but
I mean, I mean, if anything, I'll even have a next. I'm gonna try to do this Historias Urbanas like every Friday with different
okay.
guests. But one thing I can tell you, you're always welcome on my platform,
Oh, thank
Anthony.
you. Much appreciated.
And you know, since you're my Facebook friend, but also, you know, you and I, we have similar background
Very similar.
since you're in my path
Yeah,
actually is from San Pedro, we're
exactly.
gonna actually talk more about it because my thing is to try to have the history, so therefore the younger generation won't repeat our mistakes, or they will know what to do.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I agree because I agree because the more they know the information, now they'll have a more appropriate approach when they're in a studio doing the thing.
yes,
It's like when I heard the conversation that you guys spoke about how the kids would just be hanging out in the studio and they didn't get anything done, and when it came to putting the funds together to get things to build the place, nobody was there. You know?
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
That was me and my homie Sombra, because
Right.
we when we did the song, we was thinking that like, yeah, we could do this, you know what I'm saying? But then it was like a whole bunch of internal politics that,
Yeah.
that didn't make the song greater than it was.
Got you. Got you.
Yeah.
But I'm happy. I'm very proud to be on your show, and I'm very proud of you because you're doing something uh, that should have been done many years ago. You know,
Yes.
but it's never too late.
And it's never too late.
Exactly, it's never too late, and it's appropriate. It's appropriate because we're talking down to earth about the industry. Um,
Exactly.
and the experiences that one has had within the industry.
Mhm.
Yeah. So right
Yeah.
now, um, it's important to grow in the industry to learn the new technology and to try to always be on top of your game because this industry changes.
Yes.
This changes. There's a lot of new stuff that comes out all the time. There's a lot of opportunities as well.
Hmm.
Yeah. You just have to be on top of everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I do want to say that right now I'm actually involved in producing with a very very good friend of mine who was a musician who played the guira. We formed a company during the pandemic. It's called Roca
Right.
Music, and we're
Mhm.
actually producing an urbano merenguero. Uh, One of our talents passed away. Uh, but
Yes, yes. I'm sorry to
yeah,
hear about um his
Jay,
passing.
yeah. But we're very positive. We have the green light to continue his legacy because we still have a
Yes.
couple of songs that we have that uh, we plan on putting out for the new year in his memory, and especially for his family members that actually gotten to know his music more
Yep.
now because of his passing, because he was such a modest person with his family members and
Yes.
a lot of his friends.
Hmm.
But in unity, there's strength, and that's what we're actually seeing now more than in the past.
More than ever.
Yes, networking and giving the tips, the appropriate tips, and things of that nature.
Right.
And yeah, people do get to a point. I just got a call this afternoon from one of the recording artists that we work together
Right.
with. So we're going to be getting together soon. And
Hmm.
one of the things that what I like is that I like to see artists is also produce for other people. Uh,
Right.
our mainstream artists, believe it or not, they're so focused on continuing their trek, but they could also take the time to produce a talent.
Yeah, one thing which a lot of people don't know when it's talking about Aventura, right?
Yeah.
All the young groups that came after them, they actually mentored them, or they actually have like prior knowledge to them.
Oh
I'll
yeah.
tell you one. I'll tell you one story.
Okay.
It was a Dominican Puerto Rican dude that me and him we went to college, like Interboro College, right? Interboro
Okay.
Institute.
Okay.
So he was said that he used to be like a former guitarist, like he had his own small bachata group. But the thing
Yeah.
is though, it was like even though the Aventura they had their fame and everything like that. A
Right.
lot of the bachata talents that that were starting out and everything like that,
Yeah.
secretly Aventura went up and helped a lot of them. A lot of people are not going to know that, but they actually developed the talent. Like this is how you do this. This is how you write the lyrics. They was actually helping those
Yeah.
up and coming bachata groups.
They were very humble, like I mentioned before. Elvis Martinez, who nobody
Hmm.
knew, he was a brand new artist. The producer took a chance with him, but he hooked him
Yeah,
up with the musicians of Aventura before they became Aventura,
yeah,
and they worked together. And to this day, every now and then, I hear that parts of that first and the second album, you know,
hmm,
and sometimes you have to remember how things started, and
yeah,
and, like what you just mentioned, we see it every often when they do their concerts and stuff like that, and how they remember how they invited all the old uh bachateros.
yes.
Yeah, he selected his favorite bachateros on stage,
Hmm.
Chicho Severino, Chicho
Uh,
Severino, funny as hell. Nepo
yeah,
News, which was the producer in the Dominican Republic for Chicho
mhm,
Severino,
right.
uh, invested in him because he was popular to the local people.
Hmm.
Okay, yet his brother sings much better than Chicho. Okay, but who was more popular with the people? Chicho Severino.
Hmm.
A quien le debo que se aguante. He did songs that people can relate to,
Right.
And when you do songs that people can relate to, that's your number one fan right there,
Exactly.
because they're gonna always follow you because they like they can relate to your music.
Hmm.
De que a quien le debo que se aguante. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm about to go to sleep, but
All right.
it was an honor to speak with you.
Same here. From the heart. Much
It's from the
appreciated.
heart.
I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna listen to this tomorrow once it's posted and so
All right.
definitely with this. Yeah. So I'll be sharing the works that you do. We also have a radio station. We would love to feature your production on our radio station as well.
All right.
I think it's a positive thing because people will incline to really listen more, not just
Hmm.
locally, internationally as well.
Exactly.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So we'll talk more about that and we'll make it happen, especially for the
Uh,
new year.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So
Yeah.
you take care. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Uh,
Anytime.
yeah. In the future, I'll be back with some. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of nice stories.
Oh yeah, trust me, and I would love to listen to them all. So, buena noche, amigo. Good evening, Don Jose. Well, that's all, folks.